Okay, so welcome to another Ascension Messages. My name is Bobbie Richardson, and I have an absolutely amazing guest here. His name is Michael Lamb. I have actually been friends with Michael for about 14 to 15 years now, so a long time, but we come in and out of each other's lives throughout those years, at sporadic times where the energy just collects us together and we just end up coming together with all this amazing information. So we decided to bring this together to share some of our information that we're getting, and to also introduce you to Michael Lamb on my channel, so that we can share with you guys all this juicy, wonderful stuff. Now, Michael is an alchemist. He is he does a lot of workshops, and he's also on the radio a lot. So interesting fella. I'm gonna let you take over, Michael. Just give us a bit of a lowdown on what you're all about.
Thanks so much, Bobbie. Thank you very much for having me in your group. I really appreciate that, particularly at these interesting times, to say the very least. Yeah, I'd started, once again, I was a very hypersensitive kid, so a lot of people want to know a bit of my background and my life story. So yeah, picked up a lot of energies, and I was obviously picked on, you know, as everyone is when they're in school and whatever, and growing up with peers and, you know, family, religions, all those sort of things too. But yeah, I ended up learning to, you know, how to defend myself, and I studied a Korean martial arts system, and then I obviously went into more esoteric stuff, and then I started with the School of Inner Knowledge, sort of in a nutshell. That was way back in '85, but I've been training for some time, and we're learning about the elements in the more advanced systems, and also got to meditate, which I thought was absolutely fabulous. In about late '85, I met a very advanced teacher. His name was Bill Cook Edwards, and we started, I started at the School of Inner Knowledge. It's only about 4 or 5, because it's maybe about 6 or 7 on some nights, learning to do, you know, everything from psychic readings, pendulum work, billet work, mental conscious transference, which is of course remote viewing, all those sort of disciplines. I couldn't get enough of it. I thought, this is where I want to be. And then obviously I started to learn about different types of meditation techniques, not just sitting with the silence, but actually building energy, whether it be you know, fire, water, air, earth, and the etheric, but also into other advanced disciplines, how to meditate with the planets. Incidentally, I'll tell you about a little project that I've been working on, well, one of several at the moment. So we're actually building these particular keys here with the planetary meditations on there, so you can meditate on every planet, from the sun through to Mercury, Venus, Mars, you know, Neptune. They all have the energies there. That helped me with a lot of building my knowledge and that. So yeah, obviously I did 9 years in that school. We did a lot of different healing techniques, and also the beauty about that is it built a lot of inner strength and inner confidence within oneself, and also how to understand people, you know, one's own emotions and why we pick up certain thoughts. You know, for example, you know, you go into a shopping center and you're waiting at the checkout, and suddenly you start getting impatient or arrogant, and why is this person taking so long? And you're understanding that, or researching and understanding yourself, thinking, hang on, this isn't me, I'm just picking up all these thought forms, you know. So we're learning about how thought forms exist in the mental planes, and how, you know, emotions are affected in the astral planes. So separating and an understanding there are many different planes, realities, and dimensions that exist around us. We're not just protoplasmic pieces of, you know, we're not just meat puppets, as it were, which is where the mainstream sort of wants us to go. They want us to bend and fold. But we're at a time where we're coming to a juncture where we've got to be very, very strong and focused on understanding our inner soul. So we have a phenomenal amount of abilities, and also we've had, I'm sure many people that you've worked with, as I have had awakenings, and they don't know what's happening. People hear voices in their heads, or they, you know, they're very intimately connected with their pets, whether it be their dogs or their cats or their birds, or they can feel, you know, their children, even though they could be miles and miles away, even in another country, they can feel what they're going through because they're connected through that bloodline. And this is where people are waking up, but they're not going mad. They've got to understand you've got to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining in your own being. as I said, I progressed through in the 90s, and then once again I wanted to sort of almost run away from this work, but no, lo and behold, you come straight back into it, and it's part of your pathway or your mission. And people, I feel, if they understand, they just have to be, or they wish to be, in their own selves. And it's not for me to tell them what to do. It's just, you know, you don't have to believe a word I say. I say what is best for you is you've got to understand yourself. One of the reasons we go down this pathway, and many different pathways, we all make a lot of mistakes in our earlier years, and I won't speak on anyone's behalf, I'll just do it through my own life connection. Is when you go down certain pathways, whether it be relationships or experiments or, you know, tapping into different areas, one finds which areas they don't want to be in, as well as the areas they feel they should be in. So we don't know how far we can go down an area in our lives. You know, like I wanted to do more development, you know, build a school and things like this, and I did. I had a school at Windsor, which was an alchemical college, and I don't just mean like, you know, building different formulas like with the liquids. It's actually a transformation of the emotional energy. So that's that whole metaphor in the beginning of lead into gold. You know, there's lead heavy emotions of despair,
that's the alchemy of it, isn't it?
yeah, you alchemize it, it's transmuting. And once when we study, whether it be through astrology or cosmology or the elements, I like the elements, you know, fire, earth, air, water, and ether, because understand the resonant frequencies and the emotions attached to them. All right, because one understands whatever paradigm you want to use. With elements, it's elementary, because you can have negative fire emotions and negative water emotions, you know, positive fire emotions and positive water emotions.
There's always polarity.
Yes, polarity, and we come to a neutral space. Now, once again, I went through a space where I neutralized myself, but I lost my personality, I lost my character. I'd like to keep my character. I like my sense of humor. I've got to get comfortable in my own skin, and that's an important thing, knowing what one wants. And
self-acceptance is a big thing, isn't it, when we get into this work of allowing our personalities to be accepted in all facets of ourselves, whether, you know, if other people are outside of us, you know, shaming us for whatever, but if we've accepted that part of ourselves, it doesn't matter. It's like water off a duck's back then. So you kind of stepped into a new paradigm of yourself.
Absolutely. You can feel the energy coming before it happens. Also, understanding one's dreams are very important because of the symbology.
Been taken away from us, Michael, that whole understanding of our dreams. I learned a lot from my dreams and my visions and everything. And when I say visions, things that really came in, that's been taken away from us. Like the first thing I did with my children is, what did you dream about last night? I think it was so important to get a more of an inner understanding of where their energy was. We don't even think about that sort of thing. It's not even brought up in school. It's like, you dream what? Who cares, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's always those messages and connections is important. When one gets very good, they wake up in their dreams and they can take control of their own life and their destiny. It's called lucid dreaming, or it goes under many names in many different cultures around the world. But this is the key to a lot of, not just the shamanic, but, you know, let's say warrior priest class or the enchantresses and things like that. They go and they train in, you know, I suppose some of the mystery schools. And once again, it's up to people to know when they need to leave. But I find when people are working on themselves, you know, we look at, I suppose, introspection as being very, very helpful, and also studying. Some books really work good, you know, aha moments. You get drawn to certain books, or you get drawn to certain people, or certain teachers at a certain time, and that's very, very good to follow, rather than I can do it all myself. That's okay, but it's like an alcoholic or something. Sometimes you got to put your hand up and say, well, I've had enough, I need help, I really need it, you know. Or people, you know, adverse addictions, and that's a big thing on this planet at the moment too as well. But understanding it, or even moderating it, and actually knowing when one can function you know, properly and, you know, create. Because, for example, we all have, you know, family, and we have our work or other responsibilities, and also keeping our house and our energy clean is very, very important. You know, keep things where they're supposed to be, lay out nice, clean energy. And we want to be with people that are similar to ourselves, that are assimilate to our energy in respect to, you know, that clean energy. So it's not just a physical, it's an astral hygiene and an emotional hygiene, and actually being present, listening to, you know, a partner or a work partner or a colleague or a client. One must be, you know, in their best that they can be in those states.
And
it
that's,
doesn't matter what.
found, sorry, Michael, I found that when people come into my reality and they're not in that clean energy, they could stay there for a little bit, even if I'm like dating them or something, stay there for a little bit, but it won't take long, because I just purely reflect back to them the lack of their own love within themselves. And then they just have to fly. They have to make an excuse. They have to take off. They don't want anything to do with me. They'll project it onto me or whatever. And I'm left there going, huh? What just happened? But now I realize from an observational point of view, I hold a certain frequency. And if you're not matching that frequency, you will have to shed the delusional parts of yourself to be able to be with me. Otherwise, you will end up only staying for a short time and then you move on. And I just keep staying in that higher frequency. I notice that's what's happening a lot lately.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with when you're resonating that energy, you know, in a similar aspect. It's the same with, it might be a work situation. You can go so long, but once it gets past its point of no return, you have to either adjust, change, or move on, as it were. And you, from my point of view, speaking from my own experience, it's about, I suppose, the speed of the frequency you're working at. You know, it's like other worlds and dimensions, the same as in your dream state. It's a different frequency. It's like an inverse aspect of this world. It's the same, but it's like an inversion of time and space. And I was just talking to a lot of colleagues and students about time and how that works. People think it's just a mental construct. That's not the case whatsoever. That sequence is exactly how advanced beings or elementary beings and that get in and out of the zones. I mean, Tesla was very, very familiar with it. I remember a quote from Albert Einstein saying, because both Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla worked on the Philadelphia experiment. And I mean, there's a lot of, you know, information about that, but that really tipped me over on top, you know, when I left the school. And what Albert Einstein was asked, you know, what's it like to be the smartest man in the world? And he said, well, you know, I don't know. You'll have to ask Nikola Tesla that, you know, because that's a very, very beautiful and brave thing.
I was led to that Philadelphia experiment when I was looking at the balance of the mind, and I was led to the fact that he had created 2 generators. And then a third one, it was like they were syncing up with the center of the galaxy or something. There was something going on there. And I'm like, that's so similar to our 2 hemispheres of our brain syncing up to our pineal gland and having that resonance happening and working together. And then all of a sudden they could like portal into different realities. And like, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. Once again, I think when we're working through this, we keep learning, we keep researching. We never want to say we know it all.
No.
That's a trap too. You know, one will always be humble. It's like you're being in touch with, you know, the 10-year-old or the 5-year-old inside of you, as well as the ancient, you know, the ancient sage or the wise woman or that, which is we're sort of at all those realities at the same time. You know, one is one's brother, one's sister, one's mother, all those sorts of things. Back to the Philadelphia experiment, don't mind me, I talk quite fast. It's just the way I move a lot of information. We were talking about mercurial mind. When one works with planets, it helps a lot with the speed and the information we can process, because a lot of people get overwhelmed in this time. And I surely do sometimes, particularly when I'm dealing with some tech and you know, all that kind of thing. And you know, Mercury retrograde's an important thing to understand, you know, with planetary energies. But getting back to Philadelphia experiment, you know, that was obviously an experiment in not just like getting under the radar with their shipping. It was actually about a time travel aspect that took place. And obviously it wasn't by accident. You get people like Nikola Tesla on a project like that. And, you know, Nikola Tesla, over 500 patents, That what kind of mind works that way? But he stayed absolutely focused in what he did. And also, you know, he obviously had to tap into ether. Also, he said, there's a, like with the Enneagram, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Enneagram, the way of the 9, you know, 3, 6, and 9. If you can crack that numerological code, or not just meant it in just base numerology or any of that, it actually connects to all these hyper dimensions, the 3, 6, 9. And once again, we're working now, not just 2-dimensional objects, we're working with 3-dimensional geometric aspects. So things such as, you know, advanced meditations now. You know, we do a lot of energy meditations. So we talk about macabre and the nesting of the platonic solids. It helps us understand how to get into 4-dimensional and 5-dimensional ways of thinking. I mean, it's a lot for people, but one becomes very attuned to life force around them, whether it be certain trees or flowers in one's yard, or, you know, out in the parks, or you go to the beach. If you're getting hammered, I'll talk about the basics. I won't go too advanced because it's not healthy for those, unless those are ready. I take that for those students that are ready to delve into a lot more of the deeper aspect.
I do have a lot of people watching that are more in the light worker realm, like they're eager. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's good. As I say, once again, quick Q&A would probably be helpful there, because certain questions. But I'd say people get outdoors. You know, go for a walk on the beach if you're getting hammered. You know, have a shower. You know, make yourself feel better, because it's so easy to fall into illnesses and diseases or disharmonies. Most of the disharmonies and diseases are picked up from negative emotions and negative thoughts, and that's understandable too, because, you know, it could be, you know, a loved one or friends, or disappointments, and one must be able to do their best to get up to the next, you know, another frequency. So once again, connect with nature. Mother Nature knows you've got all the levels sitting right in front of our faces. You know, you've got the crystalline earth kingdom. You can walk on the grass, ground your feet. You know, you've got the plant kingdom there. Once again, there's so many different types of plants, beautiful flowers blooming all the time, as well as then you've got the animal kingdom and the birds and the insects. And you can watch nature, you know, as well. And then, of course, we move into the human consciousness, and people think there's 7 billion humans on this planet. Well, that's actually not the case. There's probably 7 billion humanoid types of beings on this planet, of not just races, different species. And we'll get into star seeds and that as well, because people have fragments of that. Some may have opened up through different areas, and we're moving into 5th dimensional consciousness. It may be seen as an angelic or a star seed, or like people are awakening. Because when I was younger, I'm sure many of your people, they just felt almost alien to this planet, you know, yet very much connected to nature and the loved ones. But when they started seeing the destructive side of this planet, and the levels of that is almost incomprehensible. So, you know, I feel like we're like either fallen angels or star people that have come down, and whether we're doing, you know, serving time for bad emotions or whatever, karmic regression, or so many aspects. It's so complex. We do it. There was so many brilliant books I'd love to recommend.
I was
also not books, but also, oh, sorry, keep going. I was just going to say how important it is to connect to nature when one can listen to birds and the way they speak, whether it be, you know, magpies or you know, the butcher birds. I don't call them butcher birds, I call them deli birds, you know, because I don't know what's going on. They could be vegetarian, who knows?
I was always told that that we had to lose ourselves as light workers to find ourselves again, so we could help those that are coming out back up. So it feels like we've been put in prison, or it feels like we've like lost our way or whatever. But if we didn't do that, if we didn't come into the very denser energies back, like when you and I were born 50 so years ago, and those were a lot denser energies, then how could we have any understanding or compassion for those that are coming through? Because I was showing that I had to lead people through the maze of their own delusional aspects of themselves, to be able to step into what already resides on Earth itself, which is the higher frequencies. It already does reside. It's just that humanity in itself had to be in lockdown to learn all about that logical aspect of themselves. That's what I was told.
Yes, I understand. Many people go through what is sort of part of the different aspects of their journey, and it's complex. I mean, we're not in World War II or not in World War One in bombed areas at the moment, but then again, I'm only speaking for myself. It could be a lot worse. And once again, if you understand how long the battles have been going on, at the moment, if there's war on Earth, there's war in the heavens. So there's a changing of the guard with the
And
new
there's war
Aquarian age.
within. There's definitely war
Absolutely,
within.
yes.
It all comes back to how is humanity functioning within themselves? Because
Absolutely.
if they're functioning in a higher, peaceful, acceptance, loving, projecting love out to the world and accepting nature as the beauty that it is, then it ends up that ends up being our reflection. But if we're inside ourselves, you know, completely dooming ourselves and making ourselves feel really crap about who we are and victimizing and controlling outside world so that we can feel better about ourselves, it ends up becoming a war zone outside of ourselves.
Yes, once again, it's about the emotions. If we looked at the negative, and that's what we do when we train in Hermetic alchemy and the Kabbalistic laws, it's understanding negative and positive. And I know, you know, there's bad things about this and bad things about that, but understanding when one can understand, let's say, for example, you know, negative emotions, you've got to look at it, you know, is this mine? Is I'm really feeling this? Let's say you could be in traffic and you're getting frustrated, you're running late for an appointment, or you've got to pick up the kids, or, you know, you have that, you know, that work interview or something, and you begin to get frustrated and impatient, and there's all these other things that you're buying into because it's there, particularly, you know, intersections of traffic, carbon monoxide. You're always going to be picking up thousands of vehicles of people that are also running their own programs and feeling all this other stuff. And obviously a lot of the mainstream media is not very helpful with that. You know, there's actually a lot of, you know, deep hidden fears and things. So, I mean, if you look at those emotions when they trigger us, you know, the frustrations and the impatience, and we all get them from time to time, and we need to look at it. There's an opposite polarity, you know, with frustration, there's peace. With anger, there's motivation. It's just a tweak of the frequency. It's much easier to tweak an emotion that's similar in its elemental compound. I'm saying, like, if it's a fire emotion, if you look at the negative fire emotions, for example, jealousy, hatred, destructiveness, warring and things like that, if they're being triggered in oneself, you've got the positive motivation, observation, enthusiasm, determination. These kind of, it's just a tweak, because the negative is only a little bit, rather than trying to fight it, you know, like trying to, you can dodge it too.
It's
you can
repressing it, isn't it? With that negative emotion, you're like saying to yourself, I don't like that part of myself. And yet, if you tweak it to that positive side, it is, I support that part of myself because I'm utilizing it in a manner that makes my life better.
Absolutely. And it's also realistic to look at shadow self and the darker part of oneself too, because you're not going to try and be this goody that, you know, this angelic, you know, crystal, you know, figure. I mean, we're aiming for that, but it doesn't matter. You've got to be realistic. You know, we live in a three-dimensional world. We've got to get on. We've got to pay bills. We've got to get, you know, income. We've got to sustain ourselves. We've got to, you know, be caring and loving, you know, for our friends and family. And once again, you've got to be careful to not give too much. You can give so much and you don't want to run yourself dry. I'm not saying you can't replenish your energy, because you always can. You know, you have infinite energy and infinite source. Don't buy into that. So, you know,
but are you always using it to like fight off and ward off people, or are you using it to actually inspire yourself to become a brighter light?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you feel like you're in the Matrix, and you know, you need, and you're bouncing and flying. I mean, when I saw that movie, we were already doing that very, very similar. And I thought, wow, how accurate is this? And once again, but to take that red pill, you know, you're going to go down and you're going to have to face yourself. But then again, in facing yourself, you're being honest and loyal to your higher self. Let's say your future self, you know, your future incarnations as a child. And that's why it's important we look out for the planet and our inner selves in the highest regard, finding better quality food sources and higher quality people to be with. Not that we're going to try and, you know, be ascending as angels, a cycle, but you can look at those angelic realms, these winged messengers, or future self, or you know, influential beings that have been here. And you know, some people just want to adopt to one religion or one philosophy, and that's fine, but there's many to choose from, and that was one of the gambits I went through. I like the Zen philosophy, I like the Tao, I like aspects of Hinduism, I like aspects of Buddhism. There are some really good aspects, you know, I can take from Christianity that I work with as well, you know, but also understanding Islamic or Judaism and many other cultures. Plus you can work with the ancient aspects of paganism. I mean, this blows people's minds, but once you understand what's really being said, you know, once you can see it in yourself, so, oh my goodness, that just aligns with this, or this aligns with this. I mean, the pagan deities, well, let's have a look at the Norse gods, or let's have a look at the Greek, Roman, or even the Egyptian gods.
I want to get into the Palladians as well with you, so that would be really fun.
Well, they're actually of those lines, if when you understand who and where they're from. There are many different starseeds, but if you look at, let's say, the classic Roman Greek, I mean, most people are very much aware of those, and plus many of the Egyptian, usually have 6 gods and 6 goddesses, so it's a balance, and then like a higher god or goddess, as it were, that's like the 13th, as it were, you know, like the 12 apostles and the Jesus figure, or you might have the 12 Norse, there was another 12 of those as well, and you have like the Odin figure, or you have you know, Jupiter in the Roman sense of things too, like a supreme god. We go back to Egypt, so they basically, those names have been around for thousands of years, and I've got this saying, you know, bullshit does not last for thousands of years. There's got to be truth in this, as opposed to what some politicians said the other week, means nothing. It means nothing, as opposed to the real truth is, well, hang on, these energies, these beings, you could go back to Osiris too, once again, Osiris, Isis, and Horus. You know, when you understand what's really being said, and we teach our students to understand a lot about the connection between the bird-headed gods, and what's so symbolic about the reptile or the dragon, or any of these different aspects of symbology. We do whole courses on symbology and reading symbols. Symbolism is really important as well, because our whole mainstream culture, you just drive down the street and it's just full of symbols if you know how to read it, but a lot of them are triggering. You know, there's a really good book.
All in our reality, so that we can actually face that. We can't turn around and say, that doesn't exist, or I don't want to know about that, or that's just, it's there. So there's some sort of aspect of ourselves we need to address here for that to have been a reflection outside ourselves, no matter whether it's, you know, a god or a, you know, deity or a reptilian or whatever. There's an aspect of ourselves that we're hiding away from, that's gifted outside ourselves the power. Gifted something outside ourselves the power. You bring it back and you see what that lack is within you, then there can no longer be that power that's overtaking you anymore. Like when I was attacked by a reptilian when I was waking up, this is many years ago, we're talking 20 years ago. And when that happened, like he put his arm around me, I could feel him smell. It was as real to me as anything. I just knew in myself that I would be fine, and I didn't know how. It was like jumping off that cliff into, I don't know how, but I'm going to be safe. And all my chakras just went into one big ball of light between my heart and my sacral chakra, and it burst out. It just me saying I'm going to be safe, me saying that I'm going to be fine with all of this, literally created the reality of me being fine. And I lifted myself out of his frequency, and then ran outside and put my hands on the ground and went. But I did go back into the bedroom and went to sleep that night, even though that had happened to me, because I felt empowered then. It's literally, what are they showing us? What are we lacking within ourselves that we haven't taken for ourselves to be powerful? That's what I've seen.
This is true. Yeah, as I said, once again, I'll just get back to the planets and use that as a paradigm. If you looked at the names of those planets, each of the gods and the goddesses actually reflect back to those planetary energies. And it's a solar system. If you really want to amp up your energy, you understand how to meditate with the planets. You're actually meditating with the gods that are actually within you as well. If you look at the solar system, or even this part of the sector of the galaxy, it's still like molecular structure or atoms on a micro macro level, and we're halfway between the two, from the smallest particle to the largest. We are these beings, we have these energies, and that's where the game is on Jacob's ladder. The next series of those that run the show don't want us to progress because they're running the show, and every time you'll find there's this overthrow of these ancient beings or whatever. So when that overthrow happens, the next series of gods and goddesses take over. It happened in Egypt, it happened in Greece, with the Titans and the new Olympian gods. And then the Olympian gods come to the end of their time, which is what's called a precession of the equinox. It's about a 2,000-year cycle, because we've come out of the age of Pisces, the fish, and we're moving into the Aquarian age. It's another 2,000-year cycle in the greater scale of things. But in this, within ourselves and every life, we find that there is great energy in these planets, because if you look at Gaia, our Mother Earth, because we must have that connection, our bodies virtually come from Gaia, and our soul and our spirit is ascending to the stars, as it were. We are star beings, we're suns, we're the daughters. We carry, from the womb, we carry the womb. The daughter is the naught. If you understand that, everything comes out of that egg, out of that womb. So we are suns, S-O-N or S-U-N. You're that frequency of the suns. We carry that. I mean, the sun creates a trillion tons of life force in a nanosecond on this planet, through every aspect of photosynthesis, through all the plants, all the aspects of weather and things. But her daughters and sons are these massive planets. They create a lot of the seasons and cycles, as you know, with the tides of the moon. I mean, if we're 90% liquid and the moon is magnetism, pure magnetism, she's moving through aspects as well. So creating this in and out aspect, which is love, making love. It's always flux, it's always in constant movement and growth. Because I feel many people need to understand the universal laws, of what we call the cosmic laws, and they're absolutes. And it doesn't matter if they're the most darkest negative reptile or demonic beings. I'm not knocking reptiles and dragons. I mean, there's good and bad and everything, but it doesn't matter. They're still under these laws. All is change, and you have to understand every minute it's changing. Everything's changing. So adaptability and flexibility, you can move through things. It would blow your mind, the kind of beings that have been on this planet, and we're uncovering deeper and deeper past our mainstream history now. How far does it go back? It's not like some of these civilizations just pop up from out of nowhere. I mean, look at Sumeria, the Ubia cultures, like they're so advanced. Yet once again, the names of these beings that they're looking up to, they look like they're an advanced extraterrestrial, like they've gone on to that. And we feel, if we look at our future selves, sometimes some of these beings are coming back, visiting us, giving us the knowledge and the energy to ascend again. And this is part of a process that's been happening with the quickening. It happened a lot around 2011, 2012. Now we're at 2022. But once again, back then, people just weren't ready for it. People just weren't. You have to go back and reflect and have a look at your energy motion. Energy in motion is emotion. E equals MC squared, kind of thing. Well, that's relative. But once again, you can move in and out of the matrix if you know the correct procedures to do that. Your energy can take you into other dimensions, other realms beyond this one. But once again, you have to come back, because you have loved ones here. You can't just say, I'm going to end it all until your time is ready, as it were. And we find out, we awaken, that we're not just locked in this physical and mental aspect of ourselves, or emotional aspects. We're actually sun beings, but we have a lot of energy and knowledge to express, feel, and explore. This is the key to self-reflection and self-mirroring, as it were. Look at self. And that's how we did. We used to have what was called a psychic diary when we were training, and noticing emotions that would trigger us. After the day, you'd write them down, and that we could honestly look at them through the day. And also certain aspects of there's a lot of really good books that people have written, and people can help themselves. Men and women can help themselves, and form into the highest aspects of their true selves.
I think that there's a lot of books to be written as well, because we're starting to understand from bringing back in the intuitive, imaginative side as an actual aspect of ourselves. So there's a lot more books going to be written with the logic side of it intertwined, to be able to learn from as well. Like that, definitely what has happened in the past we can learn from. But say, for instance, emotions, we've only actually used our emotions in the last eons or thousands of years through our logical thinking, and how that actually plays out outside of ourselves and how other people react to it. But emotions, like you said, carry us into different parallel universes and different ways of feeling through our life, if we bring it in through the intuitive and the soul connection of ourselves. Is another book there I could see that could be written. But yeah, I hope I'm not like over talking you. It's just I'm finding it interesting, and I want to jump in with some of the information that I have.
Oh, absolutely. Look, if we had like the Library of Alexandria, there were other libraries. There was another one in Carthage and many of these ancient places. And a lot of these books that have been written are stored in higher frequency places, such as the Akashic Library. But to access it, it's people have to learn themselves when they do their meditation or their prayers or whatever chanting rituals that they do that work. In the visible light spectrum, you only see in a fraction of things, only what we see. Whereas like you may have a cat, they can see beyond that visible light spectrum that we see. Like the same, that would be clairvoyance. For example, just using this as a very simple term, like a dog can hear beyond our frequencies. Exactly. So that's a more clairaudient aspect. Like a deer or a pack of animals, they can feel that they're being watched or being stalked or whatever. I mean, have a look at a crow even through a window. They can feel that you're looking at them, so that's more of a clairsentient aspect. So we've got these base senses, we're working on our higher senses. And once again, there's clairaudience, clairgustance, higher sense of taste. You can't just go and eat garbage food. You've got to stay away from certain places. You don't want to know what's in some of those foods, because it's there to dumb you down. That's where you must have good air and good water, because certain substances will dumb us down. They calcify the pineal pituitary gland. So accessing higher aspects, and also looking what you put in the temple. I mean, some guys going about their car and they use the highest fuel and the highest oil, but look at the garbage they put in their bodies. Like they'll do it to this other external aspect of themselves, which is awesome, great. There's some beautiful vehicles and that are on the planet. It's their car too, but this is an awesome. This is the most incredible instrument you will own in this cycle. Trust me, that's the game.
Body,
you learn this body. I mean, it's phenomenal. What you've got 100 million cells, and there are 100 trillion cells rather, and maybe 60 trillion atoms or particles within each one of those. And look at it. Introspection is phenomenal, projecting your own consciousness into every part of your body. Then you can, when you get good at that, you can see and feel inside yourself. It's another exercise we can learn. Then we can send our consciousness out to places that we can review, remote viewing. Once again, there's so many different people that have come before. Like I said, there's many books and that to be written and express what we've experienced in our lives, and also what we feel that we'd like to present, and give back to the world. Also, there are certain times in our lives.
There's also the whole aspect, like you said, that there's, like the Alexandra books and stuff that are held in other higher frequencies. It's not until we lift ourselves into those higher frequencies where we could look under a log, or so to speak, in a cave or whatever, and not see it whatsoever, because we're still in that lower frequency. And as soon as we've lifted our vibration, we look under that log again or in that cave again, all of a sudden it appears in front of us. And that's because we're, fueled ourselves, so to speak, in that higher frequency to be able to gain that wisdom and that knowledge back again. Same goes for other beings that come into our reality, say for instance the elemental world or the Palladian worlds or whatever that are coming towards us. It's once we've lifted our vibration up that they will start to materialize or show up as the go-betweens, Gaia, and different magical elements within ourselves that we can learn from and bring in and ground in our reality. So we could go back and forth. I always thought it's not just us moving away from the third dimension. I always felt like it was the third dimension expanding into different frequencies. So we're still living in the linear storyline of the left logical brain, to be able to have the adventure and have everything separated, but we're bringing in more aspects of ourselves. We're exploring into these unknown vortexes of different plant lives and the wisdom and the magic of the animals and the Palladians and the Nectarians and all the different aspects that we've still got to discover. It's just so vastly more than what we've ever been taught in our school systems.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the school systems. No. And then you're schooling yourself, as it were. And it's interesting the way you spell the word school, SCHOOL. More on that later, because that's part of learning the language of light, as it were, or the language of the angels. And each letter, words create worlds, we say in the systems, as it were, that we work with. I'm really happy. I've been trained in it, but also I had to go out and do my own independent research, and I'm happy that I am independent. I don't have to belong to any particular cultures or anything, like that. But once again, it's quite obvious in the Eastern philosophies. In the West, it's hidden under the word occult, occult. So the occult word means hidden. There's a lot of words that people need to understand what they mean. Same with the word pagan. It means people or country, people of the folk of the country. A lot of the herbalists and the medicine women, the witches, the Wicca and things, most of their law was plant law and herb based. What's vastly much more than that, but I'm saying for the healing aspect, they know sacred places where they could birth children in safety, where there was a lot of let's say what are called ley lines or places, and many of the ancient cultures still have these areas, whereas a lot of cities have been built on top of them. The Druids had them. They used to call them different lines. In Ireland, they're called fairy lines. In Germany, they're holy lines. In China, they're called dragon lines.
Humanity working with Gaia herself and understanding.
Oh, yes.
Connection frequencies of her herself. Like I believe she'll even birth caverns and like caves that are resonance to the pineal gland of our own chanting and ability of our frequency of our voice, that we can then access the pineal gland, because she'll birth them specifically for soul tribes that'll come in, and then they will be able to chant and be able to access these different soul tribe members that are still in the different planetary alignment. So there's, I believe she will start working with us more than we could ever have imagined before.
Yeah, all you have to do is ask, and so shall it be. Yeah, the inner earth process. Wow, there's just a wealth of knowledge. If I went into inner earth, like the caverns and the tunnels under a lot of these cities, because most of these big cities have been built on top of other cities, which have been built on top of other settlements, and they were built there for a reason, because it's crossover points. Understanding, I suppose, the deeper aspects. If you found, I suppose, well, I've found that there are many and explored many different layers to inner earth, and we call it hollow earth now, because there's so many different catacombs. I mean, some of these areas, just under a certain place I won't name, there's over 2,000 kilometers of tunnels, and the same with in other cities and that around the world. You keep going down. Some of us, when I was in Bourg-Arèche in southern France, it's a massive mountain, quite similar to Mount Warning Wollumbin here, as well as Mount Shasta in the US. A lot of these mountains have sacred places, and they have a connection to a lot of like Bourg-Arèche had the connection to the Magdalene line way back when, and also there's a lot of ET activity around there. And also, in France, they didn't bother covering it up. Maybe they are now with the current ruler of that country, but they never used to cover up a lot of the activities, some of the certain cultures, because it was too expensive to try and cover it up. It's happening in a lot of countries such as Mexico and Russia and places as well, because they wanted the people just to say, well, if you're experiencing this is all part of it. But you need if you see and experience anything, you also need some sort of system or some sort of set of guidelines to house it. Otherwise, people blow out. I mean, the mental institutions are full of people that are hearing voices and things. They don't understand. They go and see a certain practitioner and they could get misinformation, as opposed to they've got to understand that could be an ancestor, it could be an advanced future part of ourselves that's giving them guidance. Yet going and getting, filling yourself full of pharmaceuticals is probably not the best way to deal with it, or you start talking to any of the mainstream and, they'll just ask you what size straitjacket would you like, It's not going to work. As I said, you need to find, well, I felt you don't need to find, but it's very helpful if one finds like-minded people and like-minded souls. And once again, if you outgrow them, then you outgrow them. You're going to still be on your journey, and one must get comfortable with oneself. You got to get comfortable in your skin. And as you explore your inner self, you're going to find it in Gaia as well. And there is thousands and thousands of temples and monasteries and sacred sites across the planet, and what's really being said there is a message back to yourself. I mean, if you went to Angkor Wat, you'll see it's the serpent culture there and the dragon, but that goes right back, and that actually means a lot to do with the Kundalini energy and a very, very, very significant being named Nimkashag. She was an ancient queen from about 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, about 5,000 BC, and she came over and set up that particular culture. But there's more to that. I'm not going to be able to explain that in 5 minutes, that's for sure. But and it's not like I'm saying give you power, but it's awesome you understand the heritage of this earth, because when you start to see it, if you start getting your mind blown, that's all right. I mean, there's certain things when I read or I felt or I got a download, I just walk away with my head going, wow. It's huge. You need to ground.
It's all about grounding now, isn't it? That is the energy that we're being asked to do. Bring in that esoteric part of ourselves, that acknowledge the intuition and the imagination and our soul's connection as part of ourselves, and ground it into being able to create a reality that works with Gaia on an energetic level, as well as on the material level. It's a combination of both. We need to be able to combine both of our logic and our intuition together. Once they're on par with each other, once our logic agrees that our intuition can shift our reality into something grander by exploring, the portals and the connections with Gaia, that is going to ground it. And then we're going to be able to access so much more. But before we were all taught imagination and our intuition, it's just a load of cock, it's the feminine side, it's the receiving side of ourselves, isn't it? It's the allowing the information to come through us. We're not allowed that. So instead they cap it, and then they tell us, this is the next program, here, follow us on the TV and stuff. This is what we're going to put all our attention to. They've used our imagination to guide us into the story that's kept them at the top of the pyramid, so to speak. But we're not doing this anymore. Like, a lot of us are starting to wake up. We're not crazy. This is half of our brain, for Lord's sake. It's our right hemisphere. It's there to see. Dr. Ramachandran did studies on that and actually accessed the right hemisphere and realized that, and so did Jill Bolt Taylor. She realized that she's part of a bigger picture here through that, Dr. Ramachandran did a study on both sides of the brain where he hooked up somebody that didn't have the corpus callosum, could talk to both sides of the brain. And he said to the right hemisphere, do you believe in God? Absolutely, it believed in God. It believed in a power within itself, the soul that was connected to energy. And then it asked the left hemisphere, absolutely not. It's an atheist. It does not believe in God. It has no concept of it. And it's learning to use both of those parts of ourselves now to combine to become creator gods in this reality.
Absolutely. The Institute, the Monroe Institute, once again, he did the same thing. It's called hemisync, and it's very good if you go there to learn. You sync up both sides of the mind, left, or let's say the brain, as it were, hemisync, left and right side. There are many crossover aspects in the body, particularly when one is, that's the aspect of the caduceus, or the two serpents dancing when they go through the 7 chakra crossovers. Same with for the third eye, one's opening one's third eye. That's the feminine pillar first. She goes up, she ascends, and she sees her eye opens, hence that's the serpent coming through, the Uraeus. You see it with the Egyptian godhead figures and so on and so forth. That's the Uraeus. Serpent energy is very, very important. You know, I call it serpent. It's the key to the pent, the 5. The 5 is the phi, and the phi ratio is the Fibonacci. Understand that, you'll understand the shape of plants and that kind of energy. It's not, you know, for me just to say that, but if you understand the other side, you've got to dance, you've got to balance these two. It's like the two dragons or the two wolves within self. You know, which one you want to feed the most is where you're going to end up. And once again, the crossovers you see on the caduceus, which is the wand of Hermes, it's all symbolic. What's actually saying once you hit third eye, which is of course, you know, your ajna center, you know, your pineal pituitary complex, you can access infinite knowledge. But one has to be quite, you know, balanced to get that without it, you know, throwing the equilibrium out. Once again, there are many, many places around the world where you can learn a lot of different aspects to access yourself. You might stay there a week, you might stay there, you know, a year or whatever. I'm happy teaching what I teach. I love what I do, and I help where I can. And I'm, you know, very fortunate in this life to come back and do some good stuff.
Let's talk a little bit about what you're actually doing, Michael, because we're coming to the hour.
Okay, I'll just quickly go over it. We've just did the elements key. I say I've got a really good program here. This is it's got my logo on it there. This is I'll just put this there. That's
so cool. That key looks so cool.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time. I'm always a bit late coming. It's got my logo there, the 7 like the 7 galaxies. My name's Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, which is an anagram of alchemy. And my friends used to say, you should use that, such a cool thing, and end up becoming this amazing cross. I'll show you. It's like a crossover. I was always like an X-Man sort of thing. And I believe the X-Men are coming back. I think we have these phenomenal abilities, and you come across people who've got extraordinary abilities. You know, if they waken them, you know, that may be fanciful thinking, but in the word imagination, have a look at how it's spelt. You know, if you want to go spell, we'll show you how to spell. I magi nation. Okay, I magi nation. I magi state of being. If you understand that, I'm in the magi state of being. I mean, who came and visited those that, you know, were ascending masters? It wasn't just 3 kings, it was 3 magi. All right, so have a look at the real magicians, not just stage conjuration, or we're under the spell of illusion, which at the moment this is our new one. We're working on the planetary meditations. All right, so meditation is not just like, well, sitting in the silence is good and calming the mind and not having those distracting thoughts. Calming down and connecting to the higher self is one thing, and that's beautiful. Now we'll learn about the planets, and these are massive beings we can connect to, and they teach us deeper into the aspects of Mother Nature and Earth. And grounding, people say, oh, you need to ground more. You know, I was wearing 5 kilos of body armor, you know, with steel cap boots, and I was working in construction and engineering and things, you know, working 50, 60, 100 feet in the air and whatever. I've worked on tunnels and bridges, so I have that structural background, which gives me a lot of grounding. But also I love to surf, to paddle out on the boards, and I saw a lot of things out there because you're connecting to the ocean. I've had some incredibly phenomenal experiences out there with not just dolphins and whales, but movements of birds, migrations of birds and butterflies. You might say that that's quite druidic, and people say there's a really dark aspect to the druids. There's also a very positive aspect to it too. You know, you have high priestesses on the positive and high priestesses on the negative side. So it's, once again, it's just understanding what's really happening in nature. Nature's probably the best neutralizer. It's kind of like pH balancing, and understanding about how things are spelt. You'll get a key. You know, our farmers are spelt F-A-R, you know, F-A-R-M-E-R, whereas big farmers, P-H-A-R-M-E-R. What does the pH mean? Why is the pH on so many words like phantom and fantasy and these kind of things? Because there are certain keys hidden in front of people's face, and when you get to understand what the letters mean, you get to understand the words. We teach this. My website is michaelsalchemy.com, and I also have my email, michaelsalchemy@gmail.com at this point. I'm teaching basic Hermetic philosophy at the Brisbane Theosophical Society, 355 Wickham Terrace in Brisbane. It's a very old building, and the Theosophical Society have asked me kindly to teach, so I'm kicking that off on the 20, hang on, just get that date once again for you. I'm doing a lot of presentations, but I'm doing the basics, and I'm also doing the advanced. So we have star nights that we go out, and I point out the star law in the sky. So we're kicking off on the 26th of March, okay, and that's on a Saturday. We start at 1:30 and finish around 5:30. If you get there, I'll take you right through from the basics, understanding your will, your consciousness, your physical, mental, astral bodies, how to connect, with the spirit. And this is, through the best way I can teach that I've learned. Once again, the cost is $50 for a 4-hour session, and they give discounts if you join the Theosophical Society. They've got a phenomenal library there, everything from Annie Besant to Diane Fortune to any of the, order, whichever cultures that you want to take things from. They've got tarot classes and all sorts of things there too. I mean, we teach tarot as well, because that's part of it. I do private lessons if you want to get in touch with me for private intuition. I have students around the world, and currently teaching in Canada and places as well. Once again, due to lockdowns, we have to do it from home and Zoom. I mean, there's a lot of information, because that's how I speak, because so much comes through. And, we teach everything, people how to open up themselves. A lot of these people have these gifts already, but they might want to learn a couple of aspects about themselves, or how to channel, open up other chakras in their body, such as their hands or the soles of their feet, or how to ground energy, and how to connect with different states of consciousness, liquid states of consciousness, other elementary realms, and so on and so forth. And there are many good teachers out there too. I mean, and these prices are quite moderate. I mean, the private classes, I take students that have got a lot of advanced knowledge, and they're looking for the next level up, and I show them how to understand thought forms and emotional energy, and how to work better with that, neutralize that, so they can come back. They also may be having aspects of past cycle, I wouldn't say interference, but connection. Maybe something that might be from the Americas, shamanic aspects from Peru or Venezuela, or parts of those cultures down there, or it might be up in, from the Celtic or ancient shamanic aspects. And it's all over the world. It doesn't matter if you come from Japan or China, you've all got these ancient cultures that are there. I mean, look at the indigenous Polynesian cultures around the world, Hawaii, the Maori culture, the Tahitian, and many people have got their own aspects in the systems, and they keep that to themselves, and that's beautiful too. But I just wanted to get that out there, and say that we respect our ancient selves, and it's such a beautiful lesson to come back into this cycle and explain. And if we could get up to understanding the old ancient weather law again, that'd be good. It'd be very helpful at the moment with some of the things that are being used against us. I won't mention anything too. Yeah,
no,
we'd love to talk more.
Pushing us to ignite our gifts. That's for certain.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Pleiadian law and many of the different star systems that seeded some of the very ancient cultures have been written off out of history on purpose. There are many cultures that have been written off out of history.
Well, we were supposed to have more storms around here, and I just went, nah, had enough of the storms, and nothing's come back since. So I'm saying, we've got intention, we can send it out there, we can shift whatever they're trying to bring in on us, we can shift it. This is our reality. Take support of that. So good to see you, Michael, and thank you so much for everything that you're sharing and all of your amazing wisdom. I love you heaps, you know that.
Well, I'm still the student as well. Thank you so
I think
much.
we all are. We're all still the student. If we're not still the student, then hello, we would not be here.
It's good to
we
keep
would be in some mothership going, hello, everyone down there. Remember me.
Absolutely. Yeah, those craft organometals, and that you can communicate through telepathy and empathy.
It would be a cool topic to talk about all the
there's a lot of people say they get me up for the show, so we're going to get you back again. So thank you. It's been a blessing, and love and blessings to you and your crew, your rock steady crew. So yeah.
Okay, we'll say goodbye now, and see you until
care.
next time. Yeah.
Okay, cheers. Thank you.